As we're in the midst of the 2020 NBA Finals, many of the very best players went head-to-head multiple times. Some of the most fun recent matchups includes LeBron James vs Kevin Durant, the battles between Magic Johnson and Larry Bird throughout the 80s, must-watch television, not too intriguing, LeBron and AD's Lakers against Miami's Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, a major gap in talent amongst the two duels. Many players compared to one another never got a chance to settle the bragging rights in the biggest stage. How's it going, guys? My name's Wilson. Here are 10 historic superstar finals matchups we wish would have happened. Starting with Michael Jordan vs Hakeem Olajuwon, 94 or 95. Two of the best players in their generations, same draft class, arguably two of the most skilled players as well at their position. Jordan 6-0 in the finals, none of them against Dream's Rockets. While after the first three-peat, MJ shocked the world by retiring. Pippen was at the height of his powers, prime Horace Grant as well. Both added international star Tony Kukoc entered the league, provided a huge boost off the bench. BJ Armstrong, a 15-point-a-game guy, Steve Kerr and Bill Wellington, new additions. The Bulls team with Jordan would have challenged the 72-win team, with many in their primes. Chicago a game away from the conference finals, great chemistry, everybody knew their role under Phil Jackson. While Hakeem had one of the single greatest individual seasons all time, won MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Finals MVP, one of the biggest carry jobs of any superstar, no all-star teammates, Houston 58 wins, oldest Dork second leading scorer 14 points. The lineup of Kenny Smith, Vernon Maxwell, Ori, Dork and Hakeem wasn't the most talented, but Sam Cassell and Mario Elie, a spark off the bench. Every team Dream knocked off had two all-stars, got the best of former MVP Barkley and dominated Ewing in the finals. Houston offensive innovators with the most skillful big, 29-11 those playoffs for Hakeem, would have put up monster numbers against MJ's Bulls, especially with Bill Cartwright guarding him, but Jordan and Pippen, too dominant, would have beaten Hakeem's Rockets in 6. While Jordan came back towards the end of the 95 season, no Horace Grant going to Orlando, the main reason why the Magic knocked off the lack of big men Bulls. Jordan still averaged 31.5 points the first two series, but Chicago absolutely nobody to match it with Hakeem, one of the single best playoff runs all time, averaged 33 and 11, destroyed everybody who stood in his way. Two of the best power forwards in the 90s were outplayed by both Hakeem and Michael Jordan in multiple series. Remember, the Bulls didn't have Rodman in 95, and Hakeem ate him alive in the San Antonio series. Hard to imagine any team winning 5 straight titles without feeling some fatigue. The fact that the Rockets swept Shaq's Magic puts into perspective how determined the Rockets were. Seeing how Dream destroyed MVP David Robinson, he would have put up Wilt-like numbers against Luke Longley. I say the Bulls beat the Rockets in 94, but Rockets get the edge in 95. Bulls vs Rockets again, 1997. This time, it wasn't just Jordan vs Hakeem. Dream was slowly declining with age, wasn't near the best of the best. Jordan still number one. It would have been Houston's big three of Hakeem, Drexler and Barkley against Jordan, Pippen and Rodman. Rockets consider a super team, won 21 of their first 23 games, but finished just 57 and 25 due to an injured Barkley, limited to 56 games. Hakeem put up over 23 and 9. The big three combined to average over 60 points, but Karl Malone still on top of his game, despite being the same age as Barkley and Hakeem, led Utah to 64 wins. Each team protected home court. Besides game 6, Houston a 12-point lead with 7 minutes left. Utah went to work. John Stockton broke the hearts of the hopeful Barkley, drained the game-winning 3 to clinch a trip to the finals. The Bulls went on to beat the Jazz in 6, but did have their fair share of struggles against the Rockets throughout the 90s. The lineup of Matt Maloney, Elie, Drexler, Barkley, Hakeem, with Eddie Johnson and Kevin Willis off the bench against Harper, Jordan, Pippen, Rodman and Longley, Kukoc and Kerr off the bench, I still think the Bulls would have beaten those Rockets. Houston's big could have given Rodman problems and forced them into foul trouble. Ironic how two of the very best of their decade, drafted the same year, never met together in the biggest stage. Charles Barkley vs Shaquille O'Neal, 1995, Phoenix vs Orlando. Not a matchup many thought about. Both men trash talk each other with humor on TNT every week, the best NBA show all time. One of them would have the real bragging rights over the other if they met in the finals. If Barkley and his sons didn't choke against the Rockets, they would have likely beaten San Antonio, which they did the previous year, to advance to the finals, while the younger and experienced Magic team would have had problems against Phoenix. Phoenix losing in 95 in many ways more devastating than the 93 finals loss. Phoenix took a commanding 3-1 lead. Prime Kevin Johnson also would have been a compelling matchup with young Penny Hardaway, but Barkley went 1 of 6 from the free throw line game 4, a chance to seal it. Wesley Person missed the go-ahead 3. Suns lost in overtime. Barkley also wasn't 100%, had a sore knee, blew a double-digit lead in game 7, had 18 points, 23 rebounds. Kevin Johnson 46-point effort wasted against Houston. The matchup of KJ, Wesley Person, Dan Marley, Barkley, and AC Green, Joe Klein, and Danny Ainge off the bench against Penny, Nick Anderson, Dennis Scott, Horace Grant, Shaq, with Brian Shaw off the bench would have been a fascinating series. A young Shaq versus an older Barkley wouldn't have been appealing at the time, but now both working the same job for many years, they would have roasted each other even more. 1998, Kobe Bryant versus Michael Jordan, Lakers Bulls. Unavoidable comparisons right before the 98 All-Star game, the East in the locker room already talking about the 19-year-old sensation and how hard he'll compete. Both the same size, same skill set, combined with their competitive nature. The 19-year-old teenager against the 35-year-old veteran. Both teams split the season series. MJ had 36, Kobe 33 in the December matchup. The second matchup, Jordan 31, Kobe 20. LA did win 61 games. The younger, faster team, Nick Van Exel, Eddie Jones, Rick Fox, Ori, and O'Neal. Bryant came off the bench, averaged just 26 minutes a game, since Dale Ellis still refused to start him because of the older Eddie Jones. Overachievers filled with injuries. LA more talented than Utah on paper, but the Jazz too experienced, too well coached. O'Neal struggled defending the Stockton-Malone pick and roll. Jazz swept the Lakers. Bulls would have beaten the Lakers. Harris wasn't sold on Kobe yet. O'Neal would have ate Rodman for dinner, but Pippen and Jordan too much for Kobe, Eddie Jones, and Rick Fox to handle. Still would have been an incredible storyline. 1999, Knicks Spurs, Ewing and Larry Johnson versus Tim Duncan and David Robinson. Extremely close. What a story it would have been if 4 number 1 picks matched up against one another. Ewing the 85 draft, Robinson 87, Grandmama 91, and Duncan 97. Duncan was already amongst the faces of the NBA after Jordan retired. The AC and Knicks, a historic run to the finals, playing young Marcus Camby, the second pick the year before Duncan. Spurs 1 and 5, Knicks too small to score over the Twin Towers. The question would have been if a healthy Ewing could have dictated a different outcome. An extra big body would have given Duncan a little more trouble. Ewing was still New York's leading scorer, averaged 17 and 10, alongside Charlie Ward, Allen Houston, Johnson, Sprewell. Off the bench, Camby, Kurt Thomas, and Chris Childs. Against Avery Johnson, Sean Elliott, LA, Duncan, Robinson. San Antonio held New York to under 80 points throughout the 5 games. The hottest team in the league at the time, going into that series, won 42 of their last 48 games. With Ewing, I believe it would have won 6 or 7, but the Spurs clearly the better team. Ewing battling Robinson would cancel each other out. Camby alongside Kurt Thomas and LJ trying to contain Duncan. Timmy D was just too good at the time, while the Ewing vs. Robinson debate still continues after many years. Mavs Nets 2003, Steve Nash vs. Jason Kidd. 2 guys who still get compared to one another way after they retire. 2 iconic floor generals, masters at passing, both on the same team their younger years. Both earned their first head coaching gigs in Brooklyn. Dallas the best offensive team in 03. Might have won it all if Dirk didn't get hurt in game 3, missing the rest of the conference finals. Nash the way better shooter, but Kidd the better all-around player, especially on defense, led an average supporting cast to 2 straight finals. Dallas with Nash, Michael Finley, Raja Bell, Dirk, Rick LaFrance, alongside Nick Van Exel, Walt Williams, and Arajo Nahara. Against Kidd, Kerry Kittles, Richard Jefferson, Kenyon Martin, and Jason Collins, Lucas Harris, Mutombo, Rodney Rogers, and Aaron Williams. Dallas more firepower. San Antonio and New Jersey one of the lowest rated finals and most boring amongst most fans. Dallas would have also beaten the Nets as well with their star power, but Kidd and Nash would have been super entertaining. 2005 Heat vs Suns, Shaquille O'Neal vs Steve Nash. 15 years later, the Diesel's still angry, claiming Nash stole his MVP, one of the closest races all time. Nash received 65 first place votes, O'Neal 58. Both signed with different teams, made them serious contenders. Both Phoenix and Miami tough breaks in the postseason. Joe Johnson suffered an eye injury against Dallas, missed the first 2 games against San Antonio in the conference finals. Wade missed game 6 versus Detroit, wasn't 100% in game 7. The lineups of Damon Jones, Wade, Eddie Jones, Haslam, and Shaq against Nash, Johnson, Q, Rich, Sean Marion, and Amari. Intriguing to see. Wade and Amari, the two best scorers, two totally different style of play. Miami half-court offense with O'Neal posting up and the rise of D Wade. Phoenix fast pace, the real MVP bragging rights to perhaps settle the debate if the two teams met in the biggest stage in 05. 2005 and 2006, Miami vs San Antonio would have been awesome as well. Shaq vs Tim Duncan, two of the best bigs, both still in the conversation on who's better. The two met in the playoffs 6 different times, 15 wins and 15 losses amongst each other, none in the finals. Duncan was already better in the mid-2000s at that point due to Shaq's age, but a young Ginobili with Parker against a young explosive Wade would have been electrifying. The role players of Finley, Bowen, Ori, and Barry against Posey, Payton, Morning, and Walker. Pat Riley vs Greg Popovich, two of the top coaches in NBA history. Realistically, I believe San Antonio in 06 would have beaten Miami, but if they met in 05, O'Neal a year younger and better, I believe the 2005 Heat would have knocked off the 05 Spurs in a close 7-game series with everyone healthy. Extremely compelling. Boston, San Antonio, Tim Duncan vs Kevin Garnett 2008. Two of the best power forwards of their generation put up very similar numbers. Duncan, the better teams and way more playoff success for the most part into their early 30s. Most years, Duncan was better. A series between the quick point guards Rondo and Parker, Ray Allen vs Ginobili, Paul Pierce against an older Bruce Bowen. Pierce would do damage, Bowen near retirement at that point. Garnett vs Duncan, a tie, both winners, excellent on defense. The center spot, Kendrick Perkins vs Fabricio Oberto. Boston, the deeper bench, Eddie House, Liam Poe, James Posey, and Tony Allen vs Brent Barry, Michael Finley, Kurt Thomas, and Ime Udoka. Boston won the 2 regular season matchups. I see the C's winning this series in 6, the deeper team, more weapons. Kobe Bryant vs LeBron James 2009, the closest the two ever met. It's an absolute travesty. These two never met in the biggest stage. From the puppet commercials, everyone couldn't stop talking about it. Cleveland won 66 games, the favorites to come out of the East with Garnett injured, but the Orlando Magic ruined their hopes with stellar 3-point shooting and size, always known as the finals that never was. Two of the best players never meeting in the biggest stage. The matchup would have been what everyone would have paid attention to, but the Lakers, clearly the better team, beat the Cavs that regular season twice. Pau Gasol, the way better second option than Mo Williams. Cleveland didn't have much depth. Lamar Odom would have destroyed their bench. LA likely wins in 5. 2010, Cavs lost to Boston, wasn't close. 2011, LA swept by Dallas. By that time, Kobe was much older and James clearly the face of the NBA. LA wasn't as good in 2012 after the Vito CP3 trade screwed a lot of things up, forced to give up Odom for almost nothing in return. Kobe tore his Achilles in 2013. James's Heat were on top of the world by then. One of the greatest individual matchups that just wasn't meant to be. Cavs done to 2016. Kyrie vs Russell Westbrook, LeBron vs Kevin Durant. Durant and LeBron met in the finals multiple times. A way more entertaining matchup than LeBron vs Curry, since James is clearly more superior than Steph, and so was Irving in the 2016 finals. Cleveland would have gotten home court. I believe the series would go 7, and I give the Cavs the edge because Westbrook not trustworthy in big games. Irving and James more reliable down the stretch. OKC would have played too much iso ball. The lineup of Ross, Andre Robertson, Durant, Ibaka, and Adams with Waiters and Canner off the bench, a very big team against Irving, J.R. Smith, James, Love, and Thompson. Richard Jefferson, Shumpert, and Delly off the bench. Given OKC's lack of shooting outside of Durant, hard to believe who else knocks down a clutch jumper in late situations. Andre Robertson, a huge liability on offense. KD and Brown would put up monster numbers, but I would give playoff Irving the edge over playoff Westbrook. Honorable mentions includes the 2012 Celtics versus the 2012 Spurs. What other great individual matchups you wish you would have seen in the finals? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Subscribe for more content, more great stuff coming soon. I love all of you. See you next time.